The village of Hallstatt lay cradled between towering mountains and the still waters of the lake. In the early morning, the mist hovered gently, as though the whole world was holding its breath. Anna Fisher sat by the wooden pier, sketching the reflection of the church spire as it trembled across the ripples. For as long as she could remember, this lake had been her sanctuary. Here, she could imagine worlds beyond the narrow streets, beyond the carved balconies and flower boxes, beyond the echo of her brother's footsteps that always seemed to follow her. Lucas Fisher was 3 years older, taller, and sharper in every way. Where Anna was soft and curious, Lucas carried himself with the sternness of someone who believed he had to hold the world together. Since their father's passing, he had taken it upon himself to guard her every move. At first, it had been comforting. Now, it was a weight she felt on her shoulders, even as she dipped her pencil into shadows and light. Anna, his voice cut through the still air. She turned, startled, to see him standing at the edge of the pier. His arms were folded, his brows drawn as if the lake itself had offended him. "You should not be out here alone. It is too early." Anna closed her notebook quickly. "I am not alone, Lucas. The whole village is awake." But Lucas did not smile. He stepped closer, scanning the mist as though danger could rise from it at any moment. She bit her lip. His protectiveness no longer felt like love. It felt like a cage. Still, she gathered her things without protest. As they walked back up the narrow stone steps, Anna's thoughts lingered on her sketchbook, on the shapes of freedom she had begun to draw. She wanted more than Hallstatt. She wanted more than watchful eyes and warnings that never ceased. What she did not know was that the path ahead would soon test the very bond between them, and the lake that mirrored the mountains would soon hold their secrets. The village market buzzed with life that Saturday morning. Wooden stalls brimmed with fresh bread, golden apples, and the scent of smoked fish that drifted across the cobbled square. Anna carried a small basket for her mother, though her eyes wandered from the goods to the people. It was then she saw him, a boy her age, perhaps a little older, standing by the bookstall. His hair was dark, falling over his forehead, and his posture was relaxed in a way that felt out of place in Hallstatt, where everyone seemed always to be hurrying. He leafed through a worn volume of poetry, unaware of Anna's gaze. Curiosity stirred in her chest. She took a hesitant step closer, pretending to inspect a row of apples. But before she could say anything, Lucas appeared at her side. His hand closed firmly on her arm, guiding her away as if she were a child again. "Do not stare," Lucas muttered. "He is not from here." Anna pulled free, her cheeks warm. "So, what if he is not? He is just buying a book." Lucas's eyes narrowed. "Strangers do not come to Hallstatt without reason." His words hung heavy, but Anna's thoughts drifted back to the boy. She wondered what reason he had and why Lucas cared so much. As they left the square, she glanced over her shoulder. The boy was watching her now, a faint smile on his lips, as if he already knew her curiosity would not fade. That night, while Lucas sat by the fire sharpening his pocketknife, Anna lay awake in her room, sketching the boy's face by candlelight. Something about him unsettled her, not because she feared him, but because she wanted to know him. And deep down, she knew Lucas would never allow it. 2 days after the market, Anna was walking home from the schoolhouse, her satchel heavy with books. The streets of Hallstatt were quiet, the air carrying the smell of rain. As she turned the corner by the church, she nearly collided with him, the boy from the market. He stepped back quickly, lifting his hands in apology. "Forgive me," he said, his voice soft yet clear, carrying a faint accent that was not local. "I did not mean to startle you." Anna's heart leapt. Up close, his eyes were a shade of green she had never seen before, sharp but kind. She clutched the strap of her satchel tightly. "It is all right," she whispered. "I am Felix," he said with a small bow, as though he were a character stepping out of her sketchbook. "And you are?" "Anna, yes?" Her breath caught. "How do you know my name?" Felix smiled faintly. In a place as small as Hallstatt, names travel faster than footsteps. They stood for a moment in the drizzle until he reached into his coat and pulled out a folded paper. "There is an exhibition at the inn tomorrow evening," he explained. "Artists from Vienna are showing their works." "I thought," he paused, glancing at her satchel. "I thought you might be interested." Anna's fingers brushed against the paper as she accepted it. Her heart fluttered with both excitement and fear. She longed to see it, to glimpse the world beyond the mountains, yet she could already imagine Lucas's reaction. Felix seemed to sense her hesitation. "You do not have to decide now," he said gently. "But sometimes, one step beyond the familiar is the beginning of everything." Before she could answer, Lucas's voice echoed down the street. "Anna." She turned sharply, stuffing the invitation into her satchel. Lucas strode towards them, his expression thunderous, as his eyes landed on Felix. The drizzle turned to rain, tapping against the cobblestones, but Anna hardly noticed. She knew Lucas would demand answers, and the secret folded in her satchel was suddenly burning against her side. The rain had cleared by evening, leaving the cobblestones slick with silver light from the lanterns. Anna slipped from the house quietly, her shawl pulled tight around her shoulders. Her mother believed she was meeting a friend to study. Lucas, however, had already gone to the smithy, and she prayed he would not return too soon. The folded invitation trembled in her pocket as she hurried towards the inn. Inside, the air was alive with voices and the rich scent of wine. Paintings lined the wooden walls, landscapes of Vienna, portraits of women in gowns Anna had only ever imagined. She stood in awe, her sketchbook heart beating wildly as though these colors had been painted for her alone. And then she saw him, Felix, leaning by the hearth, speaking with one of the exhibitors. When he caught sight of her, his smile warmed the room more than the fire. "You came," he said simply. Anna nodded, unable to hide the wonder in her eyes. "I have never seen such work. It feels like the world is wider than I ever believed." Felix's gaze softened. "It is wider, and you deserve to see it all." He guided her towards a canvas of the Danube at dusk. "I think you could do this," he whispered. "Your sketches hold life. You should show them." Anna's cheeks flushed. No one had ever spoken of her art this way. But before she could reply, the door to the inn creaked open. The air seemed to tighten. Standing there, scanning the room with a storm in his eyes, was Lucas. Anna froze. Felix noticed, his jaw tightening ever so slightly. Lucas's gaze found her at once, and the crowd seemed to part around him as he crossed the floor. "Anna," he said through gritted teeth. "What are you doing here?" The paintings blurred at the edge of her vision. The taste of freedom was still sweet on her tongue, yet the weight of Lucas's hand already reached for her shoulder. She had only just begun to breathe, and already the air was slipping away. The next morning, the lake mirrored the mountains in pale silence. Anna stood at the pier, her sketchbook pressed against her chest, while Lucas's voice cut through the calm like a blade. "You cannot disappear at night, Anna. You cannot speak with strangers, and you certainly cannot sneak into an inn filled with men who paint," Anna interrupted sharply. Her voice shook, but she held his gaze. "Men who dream, Lucas. Men who live beyond this village." His jaw tightened. "That boy, Felix, he is not to be trusted. I saw the way he looked at you." Anna's hands trembled, not from fear but from frustration. "He looked at me as though I was someone. Not a child, not a responsibility, not something fragile. Someone." The water lapped gently against the wood, as if mocking the storm between them. Lucas took a step closer, lowering his tone. "I promised Father I would keep you safe." Her eyes filled with tears. "Safe is not the same as alive, Lucas. I cannot breathe if you never let me choose." For a moment, his stern face faltered, revealing the boy who had once carried her books to school, the brother who had dried her tears when nightmares came. But the armor returned swiftly. "You will not see him again," Lucas said firmly. Anna turned away, staring at the mountains that penned her in. She wanted to scream, to run, to break the walls Lucas had built around her. Instead, she whispered, almost to herself, "You cannot stop me forever." Behind her, Lucas's fists clenched at his sides, as though he had heard the crack in the walls already forming. And across the lake, unseen by them both, Felix stood on the far shore, watching. That evening, when the house had grown quiet and Lucas had retired to his room, Anna climbed the narrow staircase to the attic. Dust hung in the air, stirred by the soft glow of her candle. She pushed aside old trunks and boxes until she found what she had hidden weeks ago. A bundle of drawings, tied with a faded ribbon. Sketches of the lake, the market, the church spire. And now, pages filled with Felix. His smile. His eyes. His hand reaching for hers. Her chest tightened with both guilt and defiance. Lucas would never understand, but her art did not lie. The world outside Hallstatt called to her, and Felix was the first to remind her that she could answer. A creak on the floor below made her freeze. She blew out the candle and pressed herself against the shadows. The silence stretched until she heard the soft closing of the front door. Through a crack in the attic window, she saw Lucas disappearing into the night, his shoulders rigid, his steps heavy.